Taylor Sheridan's neo-Western masterpiece Hell or High Water ends on an ambiguous note, and some viewers may wonder if Toby, Chris Pine, and Marcus, Jeff Bridges, ever had their final shootout. Hell or High Water is one of the best neo-Westerns ever made, and one of Chris Pine's best movies, and it's clear to see why. The story of Toby and Tanner Howard, Ben Foster, robbing banks and facing off against Texas Rangers Marcus and Alberto, Gil Birmingham, is perfect Western fare, and it all led to a shootout in the desert. After their final bank robbery, Toby and Tanner parted ways, with Toby going to use the money to buy back his mother's land and Tanner going to his death in a shootout with the law. Alberto saw his untimely end in that shootout, but Marcus quickly got his revenge by shooting Tanner in the head. In the final moments of Hell or High Water, Marcus retired and Toby had secured his family's future, but their last conversation was so filled with nuance and clever dialogue that it might need some explaining. Near the end of Hell or High Water, Tanner and Toby split up. Toby went to the bank to use the robbery earnings to buy back his mother's land, and Tanner went up onto the hill he died on to have a standoff with the police. Tanner's last stand in Hell or High Water did make sure Toby could escape alive, but he also did it for a deeper reason: he wanted to. Tanner was a wild man, and he was too wild for the modern world. As Marcus mentions later in the film, if he had escaped with the money, he would have just robbed again. Tanner knew the modern world had moved past him, so he decided to go out on his own terms. His final words show why, as Tanner said, "Lord of the Plains, that's me," he felt free and wild in a world that didn't want him to be. Tanner also mentioned earlier in Hell or High Water that he's everyone's enemy, and his last stand was a chance to let some of his anger out. It was a sad moment, as Hell or High Water managed to make viewers care about Tanner despite his many flaws, but Tanner was at least happy as Marcus shot him in the head. Throughout Hell or High Water, it seemed like Marcus was going to die. He was about to retire against his will, and the world had moved past his era of being a wandering lawman just as much as it had moved past Tanner's era of being a bank robber. Despite that, during Tanner's shootout with the police, Alberto, Gil Birmingham, Marcus' Texas Ranger partner, was the one to die. By subverting expectations and having Alberto die unceremoniously, Hell or High Water made Alberto and Marcus a perfect parallel to Toby and Tanner. In Toby and Tanner's case, Tanner felt the world had left him behind. He was ready to go out in a blaze of glory, and he did just that. In Marcus and Alberto's case, Marcus was the one who felt like the world had moved on without him, yet Alberto died instead. Alberto's death shows that the two duos of Hell or High Water are inverses of each other. Even their fin